Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the pre-meetings sessions of the African Green Revolution Forum, the AGRF, and we're very pleased to welcome you all today. We would like to thank you for joining this session, and I'm very pleased to be your moderator for the first sequence. This session on Center for African Leaders on Agriculture is going to focus on looking at some of the implementation challenges that our leaders face and how they're making efforts to address them to achieve inclusive agricultural transformation. As a background, AGRA initiated the Center for African Leaders on Agriculture, supported by a number of our partners, particularly KFW, and of course, working with PolicyLink and the Africa Management Institute, to drive this initiative to ensure that we are strengthening Africa's leadership, to achieve inclusive agricultural transformation, and much more recently, the food systems transformation for us as Africa. Today's session is going to be in two parts. The first part will focus on looking at some of our strategic leaders, and what they're doing, and they will be sharing their thoughts as well as some of their aspirations and key actions that we need to consider. And sequence two will be focusing on our engagement with the AFF, the Africa Food Fellowship, on how we're going to drive leadership from an implementation perspective. So again, I'd like to welcome all our speakers, permanent secretaries, and particularly, the head of Division for Food, Agriculture and Water Resources at KFW, as well as the president of the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, who's also the UN Special Envoy for the 2021 Food Systems Summit. We will begin very quickly because of time. As you know, this is AGRF and there are following sessions immediately after this. So I would like to kindly encourage all our speakers, permanent secretaries, directors, and everyone who's speaking today to please keep to time. I would like to begin by inviting the president of AGRA, who is also the UN Special Envoy for the 2021 Food Systems Summit and has been a Minister for Agriculture for over 8 years, for the Republic of Rwanda. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Agnes Kalibata for her opening remarks. Dr. Kalibata, please.
Thank you, Apollos. And let me start by welcoming everybody who is on this call today. Welcome to the Color Conversation, but also welcome to the AGRF. This is the day that we get the AGRF going. So we are extremely excited to see you on the other side. I want to specifically, on the other side of the screen is what I meant. I want to specifically thank and welcome the PSs that are on call. I see you, PS Boga. I'm extremely happy that you are able to be part of flagging off the AGRF. PS Claude Musabiman from Rwanda, thank you for being part of this conversation. And PS Tumbo from Tanzania, thank you for being part of this conversation. I also want to thank Mandevu from ATA in Ethiopia for accepting to be part of this, and Ms. Njombe, who is also an independent advisory committee of color, for being part of this conversation. Let me thank the Africa Management Institute and USAID PolicyLink for accepting to be on this journey with us. But more importantly, let me take a moment to thank KFW and BMZ for recognizing the need to fund this initiative. This is extremely important. Our continent needs to move forward with agricultural transformation. Our continent needs to move forward from a food systems perspective. But we do have a few challenges here and there, which Color is here to address, which really is the idea behind Color. The idea is really to ensure that nobody feels isolated in this whole perspective of trying to get work done, it is a very lonely journey, believe you me. It's a very lonely journey when you're thrown into a huge and important job and you're expected to know everything that is needed to be known to get the whole thing going immediately. So because we do recognize the loneliness of this journey, because we do recognize that this journey needs capacities like no other place, because we recognize that you don't get a second chance on this journey, it's this chance that you have and you got to get it right. We thought that the best thing is to provide a mechanism that really supports leaders in their journey. One, this color will address exactly the very challenges that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis from a leadership perspective, but it also provides an opportunity for us to meet other leaders and to share knowledge. So we will continue fine-tuning color to make sure that it becomes the place where leaders feel like they can actually get support from technical experts, but they can also get support from other leaders as they go on their leadership journey. The most important thing is to make sure that no leader feels lonely. We are 55 countries, and if we are not careful, these countries can be very lonely in terms of how to get things done, especially when these things are very technical. So we really hope that you see this as an opportunity to work with each other, to work with all of us, and to bring out some of the challenges and also to pick the lessons. We don't need to be repeating things. If someone has done something right, just pick it and use it. You don't have to invent the wheel. So that's the opportunity also color offers, so that we know what is working well where, so that we can take advantage of it. Today, we've started the AGRF. We are flagging the AGRF off, and the AGRF's theme is around pathways for recovery and food systems transformation. Now, for me, I look at this as your first test. As the team here that is in color, I look at this as your first test. Your test being the fact that we need to think through what will Africa need to recover from COVID-19. We worked with many of you, especially the PSCs, to ensure that our countries don't become victims of COVID-19 from a food security perspective. And I really wanted to commend all the 3 PSCs that are here. You participated in the meetings that we are holding, and you really came through for your countries. We were able to highlight and put the agricultural sectors and the importance on the forefront of everybody's mind as a way of beating COVID-19. Now, we need to recover from COVID-19, given that our economies have suffered significantly. So what are we going to do? How is the agricultural sector going to be the anchor? The PS from Rwanda knows, also the PS from here, Kenya knows. Every time there was a lockdown, and I saw that with my own eyes, every time there was a lockdown, people start running to villages because there's something to do. There's agriculture to do in villages, right? When nothing is happening still. So this sector has come through for us. How do we take those learnings and those opportunities and make them really what the rest of the world has made of the agricultural sector? So let me not belabor that point anymore. But we also need to come through from a food systems perspective. We need to recognize that we are living through climate change. We need to recognize that we can't use our environment anyhow. We need to recognize that everything we do impacts someone else somewhere in the world. We are already being impacted by what people are doing in other parts of the world from a climate change perspective. We don't want to be part of contributing to that. So we need to do our part in fixing our environment. We need to do our part in feeding our people. And we need to do our part in ensuring equity. So that's why I'm saying this is your very first test. Because as you come out through of this meeting, we would like to see your recommendations as the cohort of 2021. What are your recommendations to the food systems perspective? So this one becomes one of those areas where you have conversations that can actually start triggering your mind around how can Africa come through differently. So I think my time is over. My first 5 minutes are over, but I really wanted to encourage you. I wanted to assure you that we see this as a huge opportunity for the continent. We see it as the opportunity that gets to connect the dots. And we hope that you enjoy your color experience. I hope that you take every moment and every advantage that the experience has to offer. And I hope we can use it to really unblock some of the challenges we've seen are holding us back. So thank you again, and I wish you great meetings And I congratulate Kala, the team that has put Kala together for getting this far alongside the partnership with KFW. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you, Dr. Kalibata, and we really appreciate those very inspiring words. And I think your last question or your last point, which leaves us with a question that our leaders on this call should be able to answer, is important, as in what does it mean for us for food systems. So thank you, Dr. Kalibata. I hope permanent secretaries, all the leaders on this call, on this session, that you're able to provide some answers that we can take with us, as part of the outcomes of the AGRF. Thank you again. I would like to, at this point, welcome Dr. Jochen Harnisch, who's the head of agriculture, water, and biodiversity at KFW, for his welcome remarks. Dr. Jochen Harnisch, the floor is yours, please. Dr. Jochen?
Yeah, thank you. A cordial jumbo, good morning and guten Morgen from Frankfurt to the many places around the globe from which people are participating in this session. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address this distinguished audience on behalf of the German Development Corporation. The partnership between AGRA and the German Development Corporation is anchored in a shared vision to increase production, productivity, and value addition to contribute to farmer and national prosperity, food security, and jobs. The Center for African Leaders in Agriculture, CALA, is a new initiative co-created by the German Development Corporation and AGRA, which brought on board the African Management Institute and Policy Link as implementing partners. Together, we are working to support Africa's agriculture sector leaders to deliver on their commitments to advance the sector. Strengthening the leadership of African agricultural economies enhances employment, trade, and investment opportunities, and aligns well with Germany's Marshall Plan with Africa and the G20 Compact with Africa. The German Development Corporation is working with AGRA to increase productivity, combat hunger, create jobs, and raise incomes of 1.7 million smallholder farmers in Burkina Faso, Ghana, and Nigeria. The investment is also supporting COVID-19 response activities in these countries. The principles of agroecology, a climate-resilient agriculture, the management of environmental and social risks are becoming more and more important in our cooperation. These concepts will thus play a growing role in CALA in response to the growing challenge of sustainability to African countries and their leaders. Our relationship has enabled the German Development Corporation and AGRA to leverage on each other's investment and lessons learned and provided opportunities to scale up. Germany and AGRA have also partnered more broadly at strategic and technical levels through joint engagement in related regional mechanisms such as CARI, the Partnership for Inclusive Agriculture Transformation in Africa, PIATA, the African Revolution Forum, AGRF, and GAFS, among others. Through encouraging these investments, AGRA has learned how we can do more to support leaders to translate the transformation vision into action. AGRA and the German Development Corporation have taken up the opportunity to co-create the Center for African Leaders in Agriculture, CALA. One of CALA's key mandates is to build networks and enhance collaboration and peer learning among sector leaders. And so I very much welcome this conversation. I look forward to interacting with the CALA community and to strengthening Africa food system leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jochen. We, on our part, the CALA team and the rest of us are looking forward, to working with you at KFW and the German Development Corporation to make sure that we're building and strengthening Africa's leadership to transform our food systems and achieve inclusive agricultural transformation. And let me use this opportunity to echo Dr. Kalibata's appreciation, of your support for this program, and to say to you that, we're looking forward to greater partnerships. Your point on the 1.7 million farmers, we're looking at that very strongly, trusting that, we will see 1.7 million farmers transit from just subsistence farming to becoming commercial business owners in agriculture that can drive those economies of the three countries forward. We want to make sure that at the end of 2030, no African country is hungry, and this support is crucial to that. So thank you again, Dr. Yoken, for your support. At this point, I'd like to invite my colleague Nungari, who's the coordinator for the CALA program here, to kindly play us a video. So for the next 5 minutes, I would like us to please watch before we go into the main discussions.
Thanks, Apollos. May I request to have my screen enabled so I can share the video?
Great, thank you. Technical team, I hope you can hear. Please enable a Nungari screen so that the video can be shared immediately. Thank you. Technical team, could you please look at the sound of the video? Thank you. And restart it.
Africa's agriculture is full of opportunity. Our experience at AGRA has shown us that achieving Africa's food security targets, achieving inclusive agricultural transformation, will require leaders who are result-oriented, responsive, adaptable, and collaborative. Leaders that can harness our potential. We are living in different times from yesterday. Today's leaders must also be ready to integrate new strategies that are environmentally sustainable, and they must be prepared to work with a diverse stake of stakeholders. The Center for Africa's Leaders in Agriculture is an African-led initiative established with funding from the German Development Corporation through KfW Bank. It represents a deepening of AGRA's strategic support to capability challenges across Africa. We are proud to be implementing CALA in partnership with the African Management Institute and the USAID Policy Link.
Africa has demonstrated strong leadership in quite a number of cases. But even in the agricultural sector, we've seen very responsible leadership. For example, where our governments, as far back as 2013, came up with CADEP commitments, to ending hunger by 2025. But I think that there's a challenge with capacity and issues around what sort of tools and approaches will help leaders, achieve these ambitious targets that we've set for ourselves.
So African Management Institutes, we enable ambitious businesses, entrepreneurs and leaders across Africa to thrive. And we do that through practical tools and training. At MI, we believe that leadership is fundamental to the success of any organization. So whether it's a business, a civil society organization or government. And we know that in agriculture, it's collaborative leadership specifically that really unlocks success and can drive progress across the continent. We've designed a 16-month journey with 5 core components. So the first are the leadership forums, super high-energy events that include interactive workshops, peer networking, guest speakers from sector champions. Secondly, we've got online courses and practical tools that will provide you with the strategies, frameworks for implementation. And then third, implementation. This is the key piece, right? So the action learning projects will give teams an opportunity to address national policy priorities through the program. And then fourth, coaching. So we have both executive and individual level coaching. And finally, game-changing case studies. And these give the opportunity for really deep dives at a sector level to get into some of these kind of meaty challenges that we face as leaders across agriculture.
So the first leadership forum that we hosted ran from the 16th to the 18th of August, and it was our inaugural leadership forum. So we're very excited to bring together the 80 leaders alongside different speakers who we think of as transformation champions in the sector. We also brought in the coaches who will be working with the cohorts to support them in their leadership journey, sharpen their leadership skills, and help them implement better along their leadership journey.
Hi, I'm Pamela Kuwali, National Director, Civil Society Aggregation Network, CISANET from Malawi. I enjoyed and learned a great deal from the Leadership Forum in August. That took place for 3 days. I learned a lot from all the sessions, the keynote speeches, the leadership sessions, but also the times that I interacted with counterparts during the social hours.
From the first leadership forum, we've seen great momentum. The cohort has really come together. They're already forming those peer leadership, peer networking bonds that we want to foster, and that's been really great. We're seeing them being a lot more forthcoming with the ideas that are emerging from their work as pertains to solving implementation challenges, and that's also what we want to foster over this 16-month leadership journey.
Leadership is often underlooked as an important factor in terms of the agricultural development and transformation in Africa. Most people, when they think about agricultural development, they think about technical issues like seeds, fertilizer, etc. But actually leadership, the ability to bring people together around a vision, an agenda, and to stay on course is critical. And if you look at African countries that have done well on agriculture, we see that there's the leadership is also great. A lot of anecdotal evidence exists to support this. And we are very happy to be part of the CALA partnership because leadership is at the core of what PolicyLink does. In particular, PolicyLink is providing and supporting the process of coaching the individuals, the cohorts that are part of the CALA program, because we believe that coaching is an approach that could support and speed up leadership learning.
Environmental sustainability is a very important aspect of how we manage our large-scale agriculture sector programs. And the reason for that is because we have severe climate change challenges all across the continent. And so one of the ways that we're profiling the importance of environmental sustainability is to take it from an agroecology perspective. And so what we're doing is to profile an agroecology case study in the program. We also have aspects of environmental and social management systems and how leaders can learn some important principles that are applicable across the continent and apply them in their programs.
You should apply for this leadership program known as CALA. You are already a leader. Anyway, you are born a leader. The achievement you've already had in your area, fantastic to see. But CALA is unique, and it's going to really help you streamline some of those leadership thoughts that you have, and how do you operationalize them to make your business thrive and make the environment you work in quite conducive, help you deliver on various programs you are supporting within the government system you're in. So CALA is not going to disrupt your thoughts. CALA is going to help you streamline and challenge you to bring the best out of you, especially in terms of leading, but leading with others. You need others to support you, but others also need you to support them.
Back to you, Apollos.
Thank you, Nungari. I hope we did enjoy that video. So because of time, I'm going to go straight into the discussion, and I'd like to sort of introduce our first set of speakers. The first is Professor Hamadi Boga, who's the Principal Secretary for the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries at the Department of Agriculture here in Kenya. Professor Boga, you're most welcome. I would also like to introduce Professor Caesar Tumbo, who's the Deputy Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Agriculture in Tanzania. And I would also like to welcome Mr. Jean-Claude Mubesimana, who is the permanent secretary for the Ministry of Agriculture, at the Republic of Uganda. Gentlemen, I'd like to say to you all, welcome. Thank you, and we will be happy to see your videos live now as we continue. I would like to start with three of you each, and you'll have 1.5 minutes each to please speak to this. What are the three critical sector programs that you're implementing now in relation to inclusive agricultural transformation? Could you please outline a maximum of three each that are really critical, to inclusive agricultural transformation and to your country's economic growth? I would like to start with you, Professor Boga, PS Agriculture, Kenya, please. Professor Boga, are you there? So probably.
Sorry. I'm there. Yeah, thank you very much. When we came into office in 2018, we found a framework that was being followed by the ministry to address the issues of inclusivity in agriculture. Mainly, they were aligned, of course, to the SDGs and the CARDIP processes. And His Excellency, the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, had come up with the Big Four agenda, which included 100% food and nutrition security, manufacturing, which would result in jobs, universal health, and of course, the affordable housing. And in order to be able to implement the CARDIP goals, as well as keep to the SDGs and also support His Excellency, the President, we came up with a new strategy, the Agriculture Sector Transformation and Growth Strategy, which was very well supported by AGRA and other development partners. And inside there, we laid a lot of emphasis on smallholder farmers, especially how to support the smallholder farmer. And the pillar on smallholder farmer was the inclusive pillar, so that we led to the reform of our processes so that the smallholder farmer could be supported better. We had this big program on fertilizer, bulk purchase of fertilizer, which we totally reformed to bring in the element of e-voucher, where the smallholder farmers would be supported in the input side through smart subsidies that are delivered through e-voucher. That meant partnership with the private sector, the input suppliers had to come on the table, and also technology providers like Safaricom, and also the banking sector. So that was one major reform. The other major reform was to help farmers, especially on the side of post-harvest management, by instituting the warehouse receipting system, reforming the National Cereals and Produce Board, and the Strategic Food Reserve. This was a complex reform which was being fought all over the place by different forces who are more comfortable with the status quo, but we stayed the course. Now we have a warehouse receipting council in place, albeit still in its formative stage. We have literally transformed the Strategic Food Reserve system and pushed the bulk of responsibility to our National Cereals and Produce Board, and also tried to commercialize the operations there. And all this also was done in partnership with the private sector. The other sector is the issue of digitization. We know data and knowledge management is key. And in order to build resilient systems, we need to harness data and we need to harness knowledge and make it available to our smallholder farmers especially. So we have a digitization strategy, and we are implementing a number of digital solutions, targeting incentives, targeting extension, targeting understanding the market through food balance sheets so that farmers can see how the market is at play. Also targeting understanding the optimization of land use so that farmers can grow the right crops in the right direction. So it has been a journey over around 3 years. We are still walking this path of reforms, because sometimes if we don't keep walking, sometimes there are people who want to go back to the old ways of doing things, which were very detrimental to the smallholder farmers, because it undermined their ability to earn more. It frustrated their investments. It also frustrated the private sector. But we are happy that we are in a good place, and we will keep walking this journey with the support of His Excellency the President and our Minister, Honorable Peter Muya, and the team in the ministry, which is collaborating very well with the private sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Boga. We really appreciate those three things around the institutional reforms, the digitization, and then, of course, the focus on the smallholder farmers. I would like to turn to you, Professor Caesar Tumbo, for the PS Ministry of Agriculture, Tanzania. Professor Tumbo, please. Professor Tumbo?
Hello.
Yes, please.
Hello.
Please go ahead. Please go
Thank
ahead,
you.
Prof.
Thank you. Okay, it seems you have disabled the video.
Apologies, Prof. Technical, could you please ensure that Prof is able to? Good, great. We can see you now, Prof. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Hello. I'm sorry. Today we have some meetings going on at the Parliament. We had 2 sessions of the meeting, and that's why I kept running around. But let me say that I managed to hear the President giving the delivery note, and also I've just heard Professor Boga also speaking. Thank you a lot. Now, the key 3 top sector priorities. The first one is on edible oil, satisfaction in terms of edible oil. So we have a very strong campaign in making sure that the country become self-sufficient in edible oil. The second one is the improving extension. And we are doing this by using digital solution. There is a tool called Mkilimo that is connecting all extension officers. And today we have managed to connect more than close to 7,000 extension officers in the agriculture sector, but the same is continuing also in the livestock sector and livestock and fisheries. The third one is improving research. And here we are talking about seeds. The focus is more on seed, research on seed. This is linked with seed production, and also is linked to also edible oil, but seed also goes all the way to cereal and other crops. So those are 3 key priorities currently being implemented in the country. We have close to 7 priorities in total, but because here we are just talking about 3, so I thought it's better if I mention only 3. But we have others like irrigation, agricultural markets, and agrofinancing. When you look at the challenges, and especially based on our topic today, we still have a very big challenge because of the way the system was structured. I think maybe this can go as back as maybe during since independence, maybe today or even before independence. So we still have people still working in box, you know, in their small boxes. The cross linkage collaborative leadership is still not that being embraced. And so we have that very big challenge. And this is when you look within a section, you go to a department, you go to ministerial level, interministerial, all the way to the sector. I think that's a very big challenge, and when we need to address that. And I believe if that is addressed, then we'll be able to tackle most of the challenges that we are coming across. And this is it's not only about within a country, but even across the country. And I was very lucky to work with Professor Boga, and he knows that. And we managed to solve some of the issues which we were supposed to sort it out, maybe because of our background working at in the research area in the past. When we talk about the third item, I can clearly refer to our former president. He used to bring us a team together. If there is a problem, he will bring the whole team, each individual, different sectors to come and address issues. And this is directly, I'm also addressing the question of the example, the case example case, which is point number 4. You can find that if there is a challenge, you bring all the ministers, permanent secretaries to address the problem. So let me stop there because of the time.
Thank you, Prof. Those are very important points. And I note, where you referred to your collaboration with Professor Boga. And I think that's one of the things CALA, aims to achieve. Thank you so much. Because of time, I'll move straight to PS Jean-Claude. PS, sir, could you share with us, in probably less than a minute, one key sector program you're trying to implement, and then share with us some of the challenges that you think, as from a leadership perspective, that we face with implementation. I see that, for example, the PS Boga and PS Tumbo have actually mentioned digitization, which is a critical part of agricultural transformation. What do you think are the sector challenges that are persistent with implementation, and how do we tackle them? And I'll be coming to you soon, Dr. Neguse, from the ATO in Ethiopia. But PS Jean-Claude, over to you, please.
Thank you, moderator. I go straight to the answer on the question you have raised because of the time. You asked about one of the key programs we are implementing in Rwanda in order to transform agriculture, and I will talk about, first of all, the crop intensification program. That is a special program that is elaborated in order to address the key challenges we are meeting to transform agriculture in Rwanda, where we have the issue of land fragmentation, as you know, where we have the issues of low productivity and low production of the system of existing agriculture systems, where we have the imperfect agriculture market and value chains, and where we have been failing to maximize on new technologies, youth, and women. And for the crop intensification program, we are implementing key activities linked to, first, to the land use consolidation program, where we, in order to address the issue of the fragmentation and low productivity, we try to make sure that that small fragments of land are used commonly, the planning of how to plant, how to conduct agriculture, how to manage product, all the factors of productivity are done together. In that program also is where we have introduced the seeds and fertilizer distribution program. We are implementing the reforms that meant to avail seeds and fertilizers on time and with the high quality. We address the issues of land husbandry, irrigation, and mechanization in order to tackle the potential of new technologies, available new technologies. We address the issues of the post-harvest and the issues linked to extension services, but also we're trying to address the issues of agriculture financing and de-risking in order to make the crop intensification program a successful. For the challenges we are meeting when we are implementing the program, I think all the agriculture programs are not standalone program. They are a joint program. It's the reason why I think today we're talking better about food systems. And when you address the issue of food systems, you have a lot of actors to manage as a leader. And one of the key challenges is how to bring all those actors together in order to have a common goal and in order to take to have a same level of commitment and of the sense of urgency. And this is one of the key challenges, and how to ensure accountability of each and one in order to deliver on what you have agreed to deliver to. And I think by addressing these key issues, you can get to the result, to the better results. But also the challenge of a leader when you are implementing such programs is that there are some theories, some knowledges got from schools, from research, and from different scientific areas that need to be transformed into tangible results. And sometimes the way to do that sometimes is challenging. And one of the challenges is to link what we have as skills, as knowledge, and to meet our attitudes in order to deliver on what we set as transformation agenda. Thank you, Apollos.
Thank you, PS. That's really very comprehensive. And one key takeaway point for me there is, how we lead for results. So leading for results is, a summary of the challenges you've mentioned, and you've been very clear. Thank you, PS. I would like to turn to two of our other speakers, Dr. Mandeforo Niguse, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Agricultural Transformation Agency in Ethiopia, and Madam Njombe Bongiwe, who's of the First Rand Bank in South Africa. I want to actually thank both of you for being here today. And I would like to turn to both of you. Dr. Mandeforo, I know you've been a former minister, and I think because of your leadership, you've been asked to drive implementation, as a strong leader. What do you think, what one mechanism do you think for delivery has been successful from where you sit? And which one has not worked, and why? We would like to hear from you, sir. Please.
Thank you. So leadership in terms of transformation is about setting a clear vision and driving the resources towards those vision. So what does that mean? So transformation is not just a one-person initiative and accomplishment. It's a collaborative work, and it works across institutions. So for that to happen, there should be a shared goal and a shared target. Within that framework, there should be a very collaborative spirit and a team charter. So a leader can really transform if the leader can mobilize the expertise and the skills and experience of the team. So it's about enhancing effectiveness. It's about motivating the team. It's about empowering staff to take action at various levels. So it's about also managing multi-stakeholders, sectoral ministries, institutions related to academics, research, and so on. So for this to happen, there should be a clear definition of transformation. In Ethiopia, we have taken the approach of agricultural commercialization cluster, and within that cluster, we're also promoting farmers production cluster. So it's about moving from subsistence-oriented production system towards a commercial production system. Within that framework, we have many things in it. So the input part, the extension part, the irrigation part, the mechanization part, these are all important drivers. So bringing in, the different actors, the commitment of leadership at various levels is critical. So initial stage of the leadership challenge would be trust. When we work together, when you bring different actors together, it is a question of trust. And once we establish the elements of trust, then that can improve the overall performance of institutions, teams, and individuals. So leadership is about providing roadmaps, then outlining the steps to be followed, mobilizing resources and the workforces. So it's a sector that really brings in several actors when we talk about agricultural transformation. So what works very well and what doesn't work very well? The challenge in terms of transformation is about rural finance. Rural finance is critical for transformation. If you don't have rural finance, there is no irrigation, there is no input, there is no market infrastructure, and so on. So the banks and the microfinance institution, the setup is meant for towns and other sectors. But agriculture by its very nature requires a long-term investment where commercial banks are not ready for that type of intervention or loan. So that is one challenge. Second challenge is implementation capacity. So as you go from the national level all the way to a village level, implementation capacity is getting lower and lower. So the leadership is also about competency. It's also about commitment. So commitment, that, things that motivate commitment is also associated with incentivizing the work to be done, the leadership efforts, the team efforts. So incentivizing and differentiating those who are performing above average and below average. And this is very much related with the civil service code of conduct, civil service laws, regulations, directives. So on the one hand, we motivate, we encourage those who are performing. On the other hand, if you don't have the right policy that encourage, that motivate, that incentivize those who are outstanding in their performance, those are some of the critical challenges. Back to you, moderator.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mande, for very important points. I noted your point on trust, commitment, and competence. And the two approaches you talked about, which is around stakeholder engagement, and beginning to look at implementation at the subnational level where delivery is, important. You touched something around the civil service reforms, which we cannot go into now because of time, but I know that's actually important. And yourself and your colleague permanent secretaries in the different countries are actually, on top of those reforms that need to happen. But I would like to turn to you, Madam Njobe Bongiwe. It's really beautiful to have you here, and I've been looking forward to hearing from you. So thankfully, I'm the one who's going to call you out now. You've been the Director General for the National Agricultural Department in South Africa, and part of the reason why you sit on the Independent Advisory Council for CALA is because of your sterling leadership. And now you head the social investment team, at the FirstRand Bank of South Africa. We've been hearing about farmers who were worried or who actually, moved down further below the poverty line because there was no social protection for them. From a leadership perspective, what do you think we should be doing differently, to ensure that we have the right kind of leadership that will support our farmers, to actually be able to grow their incomes differently, especially with the context of what you are calling a persisting COVID period that has refused to go away. We thought it was going to go away at the end of last year, but it hasn't. What do we do differently?
Wow, thank you very much for that introduction. I'm particularly excited to be here. This is just my love of life, agriculture. I think just to answer your question, I guess when I landed in the public sector, it was by default. And so I think just the comments that were made by Dr. Mandefro around leadership traits that are important, I totally agree with. I mean, clarity of intent, focus, the ability to mobilize, the ability to create a working context. And I think one of the things that I would highlight there are the value set. The values that leaders in the public and the private sector espouse are critical for going forward. Another point which wasn't necessarily mentioned, but which I also believe is important, is just the ability to allow the teams that leaders pull together, and even in stakeholder engagement, allow for failure, recognize when failure is happening, because you learn from mistakes rather than pretending they've not happened. And I think leaders in our world need to be able to be comfortable with difference of opinion. Having said all of that, I think leaders have a responsibility to self-recharge, to continuously take time out, as I say, detach, take time out to reflect on what is important and what their specific role is, and how effective they still are in their roles. Having worked in the public sector and in the private sector, I think the opportunities that are opening up now are actually quite interesting. And I guess public sector leadership in directing the frameworks within which we need to work is probably going to be key. Why do I say this? I think in as much as we're having new generations of leaders coming through the public sector, you're having new young people in the private sector, but at the core of both of those is still a commitment to address and achieve positive social impact. So creating worlds in which you can have proper conversations and meaningful conversations about what is important is at the crux of this. And in order to do that, I think just appreciating the value of evidence-based logic or articulation of the problem or quantification of the problem, and therefore in identifying a solution, you're doing it on the basis of evidence, is an important factor. So let us take our emotions and put them into a freezer somewhere and actually talk about the facts, because when you do talk about the facts, you're able to measure your success against whatever basic setup you were dealing with. The other thing that I think is very important in this interplay, the opportunity as well, in this interplay between where I think the future is, an interplay between public sector, private sector, and civil society, are the issues of trust. I think trust was mentioned already, building trust. And how do you build trust? You build trust by listening well. You build trust by putting your intentions on the table, and there's openness in terms of the communication. The opportunities in the fact that because of climate change, ironically, the private sector is much more open to talking about social impact. Because of global social unrest and global youth unemployment, private sector recognized the need to find solutions, lasting solutions for addressing poverty and inequality. It is for government to be clear around what the intention is, and for government also to demonstrate its own commitment to be ethical and to provide leadership in terms of, as I say, pathways towards those solutions. So I get particularly excited as well by the advent of technologies that I think can fast track some of the solutions we're looking for. And again, you need this collaboration between a private sector mindset and a public sector mindset to be able to find a place for those technologies to land and achieve meaningful change. So that, as they say, I think it's very much a UN speak, no one must be left behind in this progress going forward. Personally, I have had, I left the public sector almost quite a long time ago, but I still remain very committed to valuing and advancing the purpose of the public sector, to the extent where my ex-colleagues and I are actually in the process of forming an association of former directors general, so that one can be available on an ongoing basis to the new generations that come through. Because we will all make mistakes in our eras, but we should not be making the same mistakes as we lead these public sectors in our countries. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Madam Bongiwe. That's been really helpful, thank you for bringing this very special perspective between giving your experience in the public and private sector, and I think that you have more to offer as we go through Kala. I would say to us that at this point, due to time challenges, we're going to stop the sequence 1 here, and we will be moving to sequence 2 immediately. We'll encourage as much as we can everyone to please join in sequence 2 of this, and I'll hand over to my colleague Thierry Ngoga, who will then take over and run sequence 2. So thank you everyone, thank you permanent secretaries, thank you Dr. Mandeforo, thank you Madam Bongiwe for those very great insights. Please watch out for your Twitter handles, and we will be quoting you because of the very important things that you have said. But much more importantly, they will form part of the actions. And I think in sequence 2, my colleague Thierry Ngoga will be referring to some of these as he runs through with the Africa Food Fellowship for the next sequence. So have a great day, everyone, and let's move to sequence 2. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Apollos. In the interest of time, I'll really try to see how we can be. Can you mute? Yeah, we are going to move quite fast. We have a number of speakers lined up for this session. And the idea is actually to see how we translate some of the challenges the previous speakers have spoken about into pragmatic actions. So we have two very young initiatives. One is Kala, which previous speakers have spoken about, and the Africa Food Fellowship Program. They are both new, 1 year old, less than 1 year old, but they are meant to be very disruptive, bringing in those leadership solutions that we haven't seen and making sure that we really fast track the implementation solutions. PSAs and previous speakers have spoken to a number of challenges the sector face. But how can we now craft solutions that are not only policy related, but they are action oriented? What are those changes do we really want to see in the Africa food system transformation? And who are those leaders who are going to help us drive this initiative for the benefits of all those smallholders that we are supposed to be serving, as well as the African citizen in general? So I'll be very quick, and I'll invite Dr. Fadel Ndiame to give us his 2 minutes opening remarks. Fadel.
Thank you, Cherry, and good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, allow me to congratulate you for this session and to welcome our distinguished participant for this session. I'd like to acknowledge, Cherry, because we don't have a lot of time, some of the distinguished panelists will be speaking. My friend, the Professor Makendawaya, Chairperson of Malawi Planning Commission and Senior Advisor to NEPAD on CADEP. Dr. Jolie Dusabe, Youth Focal Point Secretariat, UN Food System Summit. Nachilala Nkombo, CEO of Worldwide Fund for Nature, Zambia, and Inspiration Committee, Africa Food Fellowship. Our own Victor Mugo, Youth Leader at the UN Food System Summit, and our Kala Delegate and the African Food Fellow, Cherry, you refer to. I really want to commend all the partners who contributed to setting up this initiative, which really come at the right time. And I think because we are talking about food system summit, we are really talking about game-changing solution and game-changing institutional arrangement. And Cherry, you mentioned it earlier, and it was also in the conclusion of Apollos in the previous session. The food system transformation really requires to build an ecosystem that supports leaders at all levels in order to take the right type of action. And we are happy that through CALA and African Food Fellowship, we have two initiatives that will really, position to support the leadership in really driving action in a very, very, complex and dynamic time. I think just two key points. Food system compel us to address several issues, to address several metrics, achieve objective around people, around food, around prosperity. It means that working along the value chain, bringing together several actors and making sure that they are working in the right direction. This definitely requires a new set of leaders, but also new tools of leading in this uncertain time. And we are very happy that in the context of the UN Food System Summit, our own Dr. Agnes Kalibata will be convening a summit on food system that must guide the development trajectory for global system and inspire necessary action. The summit will also explore rapidly transforming food system and come up with underlying principle and goal that enable us to meet some of the 2030 agenda around sustainable development and come up with concrete pathway to leverage this transformation and accelerate progress toward our SDG. Now, colleague, with these few words, I welcome you at this important discussion on shaping the future of African food system leaders. And I look forward to the gain from the transformative effort of strong network of leaders in the Center for African Leaders in Africa and Africa Food Fellowship. So with you.
Fadel. I think Fadel is having a network challenge, but he had already finished his remarks. So I would just like to take this opportunity to invite Dr. Dusabe. We are just 2 weeks under the UN Food System Summit, the Food System Summit. I know you've really been involved in this process. I want just to ask you, why do you think strong leadership is really important to advance African food system?
Thank you very much, moderator. It's my pleasure to be talking about this. For almost 2 years now, food systems have come to the center of global attention. And this is because in many ways, food systems are failing people and the planet. For example, last year,
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so for example, last year, over 700 million people went hungry, and most of them were in Asia and Africa. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown that our food systems are weak, and this is a very powerful wake-up call. To build back better, we need to understand the power that lies within our food systems, and we need strong leadership and concerted effort, commitment that uses the food systems lens to understand and to navigate the challenges that are within food systems and make the right choices. The UN Food Systems Summit has provided a space for people from different sectors, for people across the world to come together to re-evaluate their food systems and to identify the gaps and trade-offs that will help us go forward. In this year alone, over 500 multi-sector dialogues have taken place in different countries across the world. Up to 1,000 dialogues have been registered by businesses, by different institutions, by different groups, by youth that were really aiming to provide a space for discussion, but also a space to generate tangible ideas. And we also had this action track process that has generated more than 2,000 practical solutions that can be used. And these have been combined in about 58 solution clusters that are online and can be accessed by everyone. And so these amazing opportunities and solutions and ideas that have come from different groups across the world will be presented at the summit in just 3 weeks. Governments will also be presenting their food systems transformation pathways at the same time as well. So really the challenge is, how do we build on this momentum? How do we take these different great ideas that have been generated to build or to continue building our own African food systems? And of course, African food systems will definitely need to address the drivers behind the prevalent hunger, the drivers behind the slow progress towards reducing malnutrition. And so leading in this process will also mean developing policies that simultaneously foster inclusive opportunities, that foster access to safe and nutritious food for all. But we will also need to look at our policy structures to break the policy silos and advocate for more coordinated policies that address the issues within our countries and our context. But we will also, it is important that going forward, we really have clear goals and mechanisms to kind of follow up on what we determine to do as an African continent. And of course, this requires that we work together. It is not only the responsibilities of countries or PSAs, but we need to recognize our individual responsibility as leaders, that we have the power to facilitate and we have the power to initiate changes in our spheres of influence. And I had an opportunity to lead the youth, and it's amazing how the youth has come up. And it's great to have Victor Mogo online and on this panel, because he'll be talking about the plans for young people, how they plan to actually commit to transformation, food systems transformation itself. And I would like to invite everybody to register for the summit, because you will also have an opportunity to listen to other commitments from different groups and to also see countries present their different food systems transformation pathways. So this is really, really a critical moment. And of course, the Food System Summit is only a stop on the journey. And so there's so much to be done. So thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dusabe. Lots of fascinating words you've used. We need to be disruptive, we need to rethink, we need to reconstruct. And of course, you mentioned youth. Victor, I follow you on Twitter. There are so many amazing stuff I've seen you post on Twitter. Quite impressive to see a young man interested in agriculture. We talk about youth. We talk about Africa being the youthful continent, but not many youth are actually participating in agriculture. But also there are challenges actually to support youth in agriculture. You are very active there. You've been at the UN food system. Dusabe has mentioned your name. There are so many opportunities that are presented, but for you, what are the priorities are you taking to this UN Food System Summit from an African perspective? What are the opportunities and the priorities the youth in ag on the African continent should be taking forward? 2 minutes, Victor.
Thank you so much for that opportunity and for the kind introduction. My name is Victor Mugo, co-chair to the Youth Liaisons Group of the UN Food System Summit. And you asked a very quite important question on what are the youth priorities, especially in Africa, on food systems transformation. So one of the things that is quite consistent among young people is the recognition that our food systems are failing. And we can see that they are failing for our health, they are failing for our livelihoods, they are failing for the climate, they are failing for the youth. And the young people really have even had a challenge getting into the agricultural sector because of the current structure of our food systems. And so the imperative to transform our food systems really is quite urgent. It really should have happened years ago, but the next best time to do it is now. And so we held different online campaigns, we held different online consultations, we gathered all game-changing ideas that were concentrated around the youth, just to figure out what were the youth priorities, what do the youth want to see change within the food systems. And then we noticed 3 common themes that were coming out of all consultations, all online campaigns. One of it is that Africa really needs to think about its food, that everyone, everywhere should have access to healthy and nutritious food. And we can see about 257 million hungry people in the continent yesterday, today, and tomorrow, which is something that should be able to change. And it's not just access to food, it's access to nutritious food, especially because we can see the triple burden of malnutrition that is especially affecting young people. So we can see, especially in the statistics on obesity, we can see on nutrition deficiency, it's the children and young people who really are taking the bulk of all these effects of a broken food system. And so young people really were thinking about that and were really saying that it is crucial that that everyone everywhere should have access to healthy and nutritious food. Then the second thing, and I think that has really disoriented young people from engaging in the agricultural sector, is the issue of decent employment opportunities within the food system space. So in one avenue, we asked young people from a certain university here in Kenya, just to paint the thing that comes to their mind once the word agriculture was mentioned. So we thought these were young people who are taking agricultural courses, and so what they would paint or draw or write a word cloud will be different from the other young people. So what they drew was a very old man, showing that agriculture is not for the young. The old man was standing next to a grass-thatched house, which is a symbol of poverty in Africa. Then after that, the old man was holding a garden hoe, a djembe, commonly known as here in East Africa, which is a symbol of low space for innovation, for mechanization, for digitalization of agriculture. And lastly, the scorching sun. And so we could see and pick up these themes and see that really young people really look at agriculture as an opportunity for transformed generational poverty. And so our parents were poor because they got into agriculture, and now food systems really do not provide decent employment opportunities. And so that was the second priority among young people, that agriculture should provide decent employment opportunities for the young people in the agricultural space. And lastly, and we've already come to see this, is that young people are very passionate about their future, are very passionate about sustainability. If there's anything to go by the youth climate strikes, transition to climate smart agriculture, is that young people are really concerned that food systems are contributing and exacerbating the ecological scarcities, deforestation, and climate change, to say the least. But also there's an opportunity here for using climate change really as an opportunity to bring young people to agriculture. So climate smart agriculture can be really a great opportunity to do that. And so what was quite interesting was that the youth did not just provide priorities, they also provided their own responsibility, that the youth are also culpable for this, but they are also happy to help a lending hand in transforming our food systems. And so I'm really passionate and great to see Carla and the Africa Food Fellowship trying to grow up leaders, try to build out information, but also trying to build the capacity of even young people so that they can be able to take up this mantle to transform our food systems. Thank you so much.
Fantastic, Victor. Your energy is always good, and let's hope like Nachalala will follow suit. Nachalala, everybody who spoke pretty much spoke about some of the words you hear every single day: sustainability, climate change. Victor used scorching sun. All these resonates with you. So we can't be talking about achieving sustainable food systems without that fantastic consideration of what is known as environmental sustainability. Can you be very pragmatic? How do you want these leaders to include or embed environmental sustainability in their work? What are the key actions we need these leaders to take?
Well, thank you so much once again for really making WWF and myself part of this conversation. I think for a very long time, there has not been due consideration on the importance of agriculture sustainability to achieve sustainable food system. First and foremost, when you look at the African context, the level of environmental degradation, whether you're looking at the degradation of soils or the degradation of water systems or water basins, is quite acute. So it's critically important for the collection of leaders. I hear and agree with previous speakers that we need to take a multi-sectoral approach. We need to have the leaders that have a depth of understanding on the agriculture science and markets issue, but also leaders that have very strong soft skills that can build trust within the ecosystem of agriculture production, so that one, they're bringing a very clear understanding in terms of how large-scale agriculture, how smallholder agriculture is either contributing to environmental degradation and what reversals can happen. So when you talk about climate change, for example, in Zambia, WWF is working with farmers that are in a drought-stricken area, 6,000 of them, and over the last 5 years, we have successfully partnered with them to increase their productivity by following a set of interventions that promote what is referred to as conservation agriculture. Part of the role that we've played has been to support the FIN extension system of the Ministry of Agriculture to ensure that they're available to give the support around production, but as well as around storage. One of the good positive surprises that we got was that the conservation agriculture practices, the regenerative agriculture practices had positive net outcomes, and therefore communities were producing beyond their own consumption, and we did not have ready markets. So part of what we're doing now is connecting with market players to make sure that those farmers who are producing sustainably are incentivized to continue to produce sustainably. And we also know that we have to create a system of farm production monitoring environmental stewardship, because if we don't have environmental stewardship, we also work with big estates that perhaps use water a lot, like sugarcane industries and so on. And I'm very pleased to share with you that last week, one of the big sugar companies in Zambia agreed to be monitored in terms of how efficient they're using water, and also how they're also taking into account of how they are polluting the environment, polluting the water, because they know that polluted water is not also going to be good for their own production. I'd also want to add that the type of agriculture of the future requires us to put young people at the forefront, really make sure that we are able to provide the range of services in an agriculture ecosystem that is different from what we have today. Some of the young farmers we work with are largely making it on their own. That is not sufficient. So the role of institutional arrangement is very important. How do we make the market, how do we make policy innovators be more responsive to the farmer of tomorrow, right? I also wanted to add that the issue of really looking at what it means at the very local level, what a sustainable agriculture system looks like, requires us to recognize the agency of the moment. We've been told that 200 million Africans go to bed hungry. So just the demand for food is high, right? There's issues around affordability. What needs to be done there on affordability? There's issues about the realities of climate change, the realities of environmental degradation. These are reducing the assets smallholder farmers do have to work with for them to be productive. So if we take a targeted approach, there's no silver bullet, by the way, and there's no single leader, by the way, that can lead us to the transformation that we're looking for. We need a different mindset, mentality, where there is an interdependence of leaders working in a synchronized way to deliver shared objectives, but also manage shared risk to the agriculture system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nachala. Very good interventions. And of course, no leader will need to do this on their own. And that's why AFF and CALA came together jointly. We are talking about collaborative leadership. And I like the words you use, like farming of the future, African food system of the future. Of course, building on what Victor said, it's not going to be older people who will take agriculture forward, who will meet sustainable food system going forward from an African perspective, are going to be these young, energetic, disruptive farmers. I'm going now to go back to Dr. Mwangi and Eunice. We are talking about AFF, we are talking about CALA. Everybody's excited about these two disruptive yet young programs. What are they? Dr. Mwangi, 2 minutes, please. What is CALA?
Thank you, Thierry. A lot has been said today about what CALA is. And in essence, CALA is a program, a leadership support program to support leaders to enhance their implementation capacity. And what that is aimed at doing is to support the delivery of the commitments that we have made as leaders to the agriculture sector. So CALA is actually set up to solve for two main challenges that AGRA noticed in its relationships with government and with the private sector. And the first is, again, coming back to this question of implementation. So we're really looking to create this leadership journey where we can walk with and support the leaders who are part of our cohorts to sharpen not only their leadership skills, but also the ways in which they implement and how they collaboratively implement various agriculture programs. And the second thing was to actually deal with the challenge of succession in agriculture. So we have many people who are very technically competent and qualified, who are at the upper level of the sector, but who are soon retiring. So we want to create this peer learning atmosphere where the older can learn with the younger and can inspire each other to really implement and deliver again on those commitments that we've made. So that's what CALA is, implementation support for agriculture leaders in the sector.
Thanks, Nongari. Eunice, what is AFF and how does it really respond to some of the challenges that have been presented?
Fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone. So the African Food Fellowship is actually a practical, collaborative, visionary leadership initiative for inclusive and regenerative food futures in Africa. If I look back at our inception, Wageningen University and Research, together with Wasafiri, with support from the IKEA Foundation, initiated this fellowship to help deliver progress promised in the 2014 Malibro Declaration. Here, we are looking to end hunger in the continent and also to promote inter-Africa food exchange through the Continental Free Trade Area. We are focused through the fellowship to bring together young leaders. We recognize that leadership, African food systems leadership is evident, it's present, but collective action to ensure systemic transformation is what we were finding a gap. We are coming together as the fellowship, bringing 30 impact area food sector experts, coming together, collaborating on 3 identified impact spaces, and looking at this as the priority areas of transformation in our targeted geographies. We very much identify with some of the propositions that Nungari has spoken on, and we are happy to be on this call because there are a lot of synergies, there's a lot of overlap, and we very much identify with this call for collaborative leadership action.
Thank you very much, Eunice and Dr. Mwangi. If you were to go home, if you had a power cut and you have to leave with these keywords. If you want to understand what COLOR and AFF are going to be doing or are doing now, it's hands-on, practical delivery leadership support to make sure that Africa, we really have that leadership that is required to transform the food system we have today. So I'll move now to some of the participants who are actually benefiting directly from these new initiatives. I will start with you, Brenda. I know you've been very active in your work and the work of COLOR. I want to understand, why do you really think it is very important to adopt a food system lens to African agriculture sector leadership? I expect all these participants to be very succinct, because one of those things African leadership requires is those actually leaders who takes action so quickly, who are actually good at going straight to the point. Brenda, I will start with you.
Thank you very much for the invitation to this panel. And my view about why we should have a food system perspective to addressing the Africa challenges in agriculture is because we have several initiatives that have been put in place to address hunger, malnutrition, to also try to address capacity within the African context. And these initiatives work. The only problem is, or challenge is, that they are usually implemented in silos, and different departments think about them differently without really sharing across. So there is that need to take a food system perspective, that interventions within those that address malnutrition, they should be able to speak with interventions that look at increasing agriculture production and economic growth within the region. And the other thing is that when we have a systems thinking, you're able to identify what synergies exist, what opportunities are there, what is it that young people can do. For instance, Africa has a big population of young people who are talented and have potential to advance agriculture within the continent. However, there are sometimes a missed opportunity that they are not usually on the table where discussions are held. And yet, if they came on the table, this future is theirs and they're the ones to carry it forward. The other is that I've seen different opportunities come up, open up for young people to participate, and they have taken a very different perspective to this. In a way, I always say that the past year, 2020, where COVID happened, it was also a year where the youth had the potential to show the importance of having, or to show their potential within the food system. And this is what happened. I saw that many youth came together and they were marketing each other's commodities when markets were closed and they couldn't access different markets. I saw youth come together to ensure that something like the health system, where access to health services also became limited, that they participated in this through digital health services, through their alumni associations, promoting their different commodities in their different countries. So I feel that the important thing of us adopting a food system perspective to addressing the agriculture challenges within Africa is the different opportunities that are opened up and thinking beyond just the agriculture sector, but include other sectors and systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brenda. Belinda, where you are in Rwanda, I know we've engaged on a number of times on the Color Initiative. What is your take on this question? Belinda?
Thanks so much, Thierry, and thanks for the invitation on the panel. Just to build on what my fellow panelists have said, it's really important to adopt a food systems lens to African agriculture sector leadership for a number of reasons. In the past decades, many sub-Saharan African strategies have focused primarily on agricultural production or maternal and child nutrition. And these policies have been developed have been insufficient to solve the problem of food insecurity due to being highly concentrated on accessibility of food while not taking into account the environment and health outcomes. So I think we have to be mindful of the impact of climate change on and the environment really on food security. The number of people in urgent need of food aid has doubled during the pandemic to 270 million. And this is just not limited to just the pandemic. We've seen the number of people who suffer from hunger increase since 2015. And climate change is only making this worse. So, 80% of the world's hungriest people live in disaster-prone areas at most risk of climate-related shocks. So I think we need that holistic food systems lens to tackle all angles of this issue. But however, we're living through a revolution in agriculture investment and potential. New financing ideas like leveraging carbon markets and technology, like sensors that tell you precisely what your soil needs to maximize yields. So this only shows that there is an opportunity through an integrated food systems lens and multi-sectoral collaboration to address the environment and health challenges and ensure Africa realizes its potential to feed itself and achieve food and nutrition security.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Belinda. I'm very sorry I'll have to stop you because of time. Wayfarer, let's bring it home here in Kenya. What are the food system challenges you are facing now? Be very specific. And what type of leadership do you really think is required to address the issues we are facing in the food system in the Kenyan context? I know you are going to be very smart and do it in 1 minute, which is what we have as time. Please, Wayfarer.
Okay, thank you, Thierry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, for me, as somebody who comes from an agricultural commercial background, I tend to have a private sector mindset when looking at agriculture. And some of the gaps and challenges that we're facing in Kenya are in the productive and the production space. We're seeing that there's a need for planned farming because we've been having an issue of food glut, which has led to very high food wastage. And because of that, value addition has actually been brought to the forefront as part of our president's 4 agendas. And from a food system perspective, it's very important for us to focus on value addition because commercializing agriculture, value addition will actually reduce vulnerability of farmers to the ebb and flow of market prices. It also will increase process efficiency and price efficiency. We need to also adopt a food systems mindset as we look at our policy environment because we've seen quite a number of changes in terms of our Crops Act. And with the African Commercial Free Trade Area coming into play, we need to think about what that means for the food system that we have, not just on a country level, but also on a regional level. Then there's also the element of people first. We've had an agricultural system that is not very inclusive to the youth, as Victor Mogo has brought to the fore, also to the female gender, and also to people with disabilities. So I believe that the food system thinking will actually change how we look at some of the challenges that we are facing in terms of profitability, value addition, the policy environment, and also to ensure that agriculture is people-driven and is people-first. It's not just about food for the sake of food. It's food to create dignity for our farmers. It's food to ensure that we have an environment that is sustainable and that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Waithera. I'm going to go to you, Christabel. Of course, talking about food system is raising a number of new areas, creating new opportunities and new challenges. Can you be very specific in your specific countries? Just highlight some of those emerging new areas of excitement, areas that really excite you, but also areas that really concerns you most. And what do you really think is required from a leadership perspective to address especially those areas that concerns you and take forward those that excite you? 1 minute, please.
I'll try and do it in 1 minute here. Thank you. So I think how people have mentioned, it's estimated that about 60% of all global arable land is in Africa, which means Africa can not only feed itself, but the rest of the world too. But one of the biggest constraints is actually access to finance. And I'll just focus specifically, I think, on access to finance, particularly for small businesses who not only play a critical role in economic development of any country, but specifically in food systems. They can create more inclusive and sustainable food systems, as well as facilitate pathways out of poverty for smallholder farmers. So personally, and I think within ASELI, that's the area that we're most excited about. We've done research that shows that the risk in agricultural lending to agri-SMEs is twice as high as other sectors, while the return is about 4 to 5%. As a result, lenders are very averse to providing capital to agri-SMEs. So that means that the gap remains at about $65 billion. What this means then for leaders is, I think, 3 things. One is that because the gap is so significant, we need leaders who are first and foremost bold enough to seek for and adopt innovative solutions. Secondly, we need to be intentional about directing public funding towards activities that show demonstrable impact but can actually lead to systemic change. And then lastly, we need food system leaders who can and actually will take the time on sometimes building relationships that can sometimes be difficult. I think there's a role that leaders can play in brokering partnerships between public and private partners, as well as social sectors. So I think 3 things that I'm trying to say is 1, there's a significant gap and we really need to be bold and be innovative. 2, we need to direct public funding in a meaningful manner. And then lastly, we actually need to broker partnerships between public, private, and social sectors to actually start to transform agricultural systems. Thanks, Thierry.
Thank you very much, Christabel. And I really liked how you summed up your points. Boldness, intentionality, better targeting of public and private investment, having solutions that really addresses systematic change, collaboration. 2 exciting words you've really used. And I wonder whether Kala and FF are going to be responding this way. I want to bring back Waithera, but before you come in, I want to invite Victor from Nigeria, who's a Kala participant. Are all these things solutions that Kala is going to be providing? What excites you about Kala? Vincent, please. Apologies, Victor.
Hi.
Victor, you have 1 minute. I trust people from the West, so you can really stick to time. 1 minute, Victor. Vincent.
Victor or Vincent? Okay.
Vincent, apologies.
Thank you very much. Well, for me, the greatest value I have learned and that helped is networking and partnership came out very strong. Then I hope you are hearing me, Terry.
Yeah, I can hear you well. Thank you. I can hear you well.
Networking and partnership. Then again, I'm looking at institutional development and systems change. Then the other one I'll talk about is alignment of policymakers' priority to science-based proven technologies. Why this is important? It is rather because leadership is both an art and a skills to be learned. So from the 3 days workshop we had, those things came out strong for me. I created value that I need to use in my leadership skills to be a visionary leader, a democratic leader, and a pace setter leader. That's what I want to say for now. I'll still come back later.
I wasn't wrong. People from the West are always on time and on point. Why, Vera? What excites you about AFF?
What I love about AFF is that it's fostered in the spirit of Ubuntu. Basically, it's people-driven, and it creates an element of critical thinking towards all the aspects of agriculture. We say that agriculture is not a hobby, it's not a poor man's industry, it's actually something that needs to be productive, progressive, profitable for our people. It needs to have a policy environment that makes sense, and it needs to be people first. And that's what AFF is all about. It's about creating an environment that fosters synergy in agriculture and the food system.
Thank you very much, Waithera. Fantastic conversation. They all evolved around a number of issues, and one of the recurrent word is around collaboration. Collaborative leadership is what CALA and AFF are really trying to introduce or enhance to achieve the African agriculture food system we all want. Joost, I know you are involved in AFF. From your perspective, you've had a number of times, a number of participants have really mentioned collaboration. Your thoughts, especially on how we take this forward. Joost.
Thank you, Thierry. And it's a pleasure to have had 2 hours of such rich thinking coming in. So to summarize in 2 minutes and look forward, there's 3 words that come through to me in all that I hear around the need for leadership, new kinds of leadership. The first word is deliver. The need for leadership that delivers on the promises that are made. So many people, so many of you have said, we have great commitments. We actually do know the kind of things that we want to do. Now we need leadership that actually gets us delivering in an accountable manner what we promised to be doing. The second word that I keep hearing through is the word systems, that we move away from only thinking about production or only about single solutions, but addressing the need to be dealing with complex, interconnected goals, people first, planet first, profit for all. How do you deal with the trade-offs? Where can you turn them into synergies? So that needs a system lens to actually bring together. And Thierry, you mentioned yourself that last word, collective and collaboration. So indeed, both the delivering and the systems perspective implies doing this together in some kind of a manner. But I want to end by referring to the first words that Agnes started with, is saying that the leadership and what we do together is to ensure that we don't feel lonely. Because in doing this, you will be disruptive. You must be bold. You must bring in youth, and you will be meeting resistance. That's what leadership, I'm also hearing and everyone is saying, is it works for a lot of people. New leadership needs to be thinking, how do we make it work for those that it doesn't work? And that's where CALA and the African Food Fellowship brings that interconnected levels. And it's an invitation to everybody to saying, how do we connect those levels from continental to national to local to make sure that at all levels we're supporting each other and together delivering on the collective goals?
Thank you very much, Joost. Thanks to everyone who was with us, for those who spoke and those who were listening and watching us. We thank you very much. We do invite you to engage with CALA and AFF, 2 good young initiatives, very disruptive, very promising, and of course, you've had very bold. Let's be transformational. Let's work together. Nobody's going to achieve this alone. Thank you very much, and this is the end of the session.
Thank you.